Okay, so part 2. Looking at this first one, I'm just going to take what's on the inside, so 9x squared minus 100, and set that equal to 0. Now, if I wanted to solve this, I would add that 100 to both sides, so now I have 9x squared equals 100, and then I would divide them both by 9, so I have x squared equals 100 divided by 9. Now, how do I get rid of x squared? How do I make that into just a plain x? I'm going to do square root. So I'm going to be left with x equals square root of 100 is 10, square root of 9 is 3. Now, what's the important thing with square roots? What do we always get? Positive and negative. So, thinking about this, just like before, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to go to 3.5, because that's 10th or like somewhere right around there. So I'm going to go straight up, straight down, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So straight up, straight down. Now we're going to make our sign chart. So we have 9x squared minus 100. And then you can do the product if you want. I'm going to go ahead and just do it just so it's consistent all the time. So x is less than negative 10 over 3. So that means that this is going to be positive. And that means this product is going to be positive. So that means this side right here is positive. So now I have negative 10 over 3 is less than x is less than positive 10 over 3. So we can plug in 0. So that would mean that this is negative. So that means this is negative. So that means this whole middle section from here till here is in the bottom. Then we have 10 thirds is less than x. That's going to give me a positive. So my product is positive. So that tells me that this whole piece over here is positive. Now, thinking about this further, thinking back to the last video, we can't have a negative, right? So that means that this side over here works and this side over here works. We're not going to count whatever's happening in the middle. We don't care about that. So my domain is going to be from negative infinity all the way until this point right here. So negative 10 thirds, make that into a bracket. And then it's also going to be from positive 10 thirds all the way till positive infinity. That is my domain. Now, what do you think would be a simpler way to do this? Rather than having to do all of like the sign chart and everything, what would work every single time? We can literally just look at the 2 points that we find, so figure out our 2 x values, and then just go on each side of them. It's never going to be where they're in the middle. It's always going to be on the outsides. Okay, so go ahead and skip this next one. I don't want to do that one. I want to go on to the next part. So, again, you can go through it and do it the whole entire long way, but I would prefer to just do it a simpler way. So looking at this, I have 10x squared plus 100x. Now, what can I pull out? Well, it looks like I can pull out a 10 and an x. So I have 10x, so that leaves me with x plus 100 divided by 10 is 10. X divided by x is just x equals 0. So that tells me that I'm going to have x equals, well, 10x equals 0, so that means that 0. And x plus 10 equals 0, so that means negative 10. Now, you can do the whole entire long chart thing where it looks like this. So x plus 10, my product, and then figure out all the pieces. So x is less than negative 10 is less than x, less than 0, 0 is less than x. So negative, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. So positive, negative, that should be a plus, positive. So that's going to mean the same exact thing, isn't it? So I'm going to put something over here. Cool. So it's going to go off like this. And then somewhere over here, it's going to go off like this. So my domain is going to be negative infinity to negative 10. And then 0 to infinity. So you don't have to do all that extra work. I don't see a reason in having to do that. You can see your answers right away. You know your 2 answers, and then you just know, hey, it's on each side of it. So go ahead and try that out on the next one. Okay, so looking at this, well, let's go ahead and take out the trash. So minus 16x plus 28. Okay, so that tells me I have x minus 2, x minus 14 equals 0. This one's a little bit harder because I can, like both of these, neither of them actually are divisible by 4. So I'm going to have to think about what can actually go into them. Well, for the first one, 2 can, so that means I have 2 left over, x minus 1. And then 2 can go into that too, so I have 2 left over, minus 7. Now, the reason why I knew it was going to be 2 is because you see how this is a 2x? I knew that this also had to be a 2x because 2 times 2 gives me this 4 right here, okay? So that's just a simple way to go ahead and figure it out. Now, solving each of these, x gives me 1/2 for the first one, and it gives me 7/2 for the second one. So my domain is just going to be negative infinity all the way to a half, bracket, 7/2 to positive infinity. If you don't believe me on this one, you can go ahead and type it into Desmos and see, are you getting the same thing? You're going to see that, yeah, it's a graph where it doesn't count the middle part. It's only counting the outside edges. So let's go ahead and try this one. Okay, so we have x squared plus 29x minus 30. So that tells me that I'm going to have x minus 1, x plus 30. Now I'm going to divide both of these by 6. So that tells me I'm going to have 6x minus 1 and x plus 5. Those are both going to equal 0. So where are my zeros? Well, it looks like it's going to be at 1/6 and negative 5. The 1/6 came from right here. I added the 1 over from right there, and then I divided it by 6. Okay, so my domain is going to be from negative infinity all the way to negative 5. And then from 1/6 all the way to positive infinity. If you get confused on this part, you can always draw a chart and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Draw a dot there. Boom, boom, boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1/6 is, I don't know, somewhere right here. Boom, 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 boom. So it's over here. So that tells me, hey, I need to say the negative 5 first instead of the 1/6. Okay, now try the very last one. Okay, so looking at this, we have x squared plus 22x plus 72. Now, numbers that multiply to give me 72 and add to give me 22, that would be 4 and 18. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, 22. Okay. Now we're going to divide both of these by 8. Again, this one's a little bit more difficult because 4 doesn't go into 8 and 18, or 8 doesn't go into 18. So we're going to see what does work here. Well, it looks like for this one, 4 would go into both of these. So that would mean 2 times 4 gives me that 8. So there's 2 left over plus 1 because 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then this one, well, what can I put in front of x? Well, 2 times 4 gives me 8, so I know that I'm going to have 4 left over, so that means I want to know what is 18 divided by the 2, because remember, 8 equals 2 times 4. I knew I had this 4 sitting right here in the front, so that went there, so that means, okay, I'm dividing this thing by 2. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. Now we're going to simplify this, so x equals negative 1/2, and I just need to put that negative sign, negative 9 over 4. Okay, so now my domain is going to be negative infinity to negative 9 over 4, and then negative 1 over 2 all the way to positive infinity. So again, check that out on Desmos. Look and see. It's going to give you the same exact thing. But go ahead and double check that, and then I want you to come back and tell me whether or not I gave you the same picture. Okay, so now that's everything. This is still mainly just review. The only thing that was different here was the fact that we had square roots. Square root tells me I cannot have a negative answer. So that just pretty much cuts out a whole section of our graph. Okay, cool. So go ahead and work on delta math, and I'll see you next week.